Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in as we continue moving through our course. Been going pretty quickly to this point, and in fact, next week, if you can believe it, is midterm. It really flies by. So we basically will have done about 4 weeks of our 8-week course next week. So we've just finished up Unit 6, which probably took you to do the work all of 5 or 10 minutes, if that, honestly. But like I said before, it's one of those things where the skill you're learning or the kind of information you're getting is ultimately going to be valuable when it's put into context of actually writing a larger essay. So a fairly easy unit to complete, but that sort of belies or disguises how important it is that you learn that basic material about using secondary sources or what's appropriate and relevant versus what's not. So that now applies in all of the essays that we write, which brings us to our next unit, Unit 7. And you'll notice that we have a little bit longer to work on this one, so we've moved fairly quickly through some of the earlier ones to allow us the space to have a little more time with this one, because obviously it's our first essay. Now, the first thing to point out is that even though we've done some work with secondary sources and we've just finished Unit 6 on locating secondary sources, you're not actually required to use one for this first essay. You'll be asked to integrate something in Unit 8, which is a revision of the first essay. But you can hold off on having to deal with sources for the very first essay that we're doing, Unit 7. Now, I'll skip to the second thing in the unit here, which is just a reminder and kind of a funny Lego video. I don't know what it is, but everything is funnier when it's built out of Lego. Anyway, really just a reminder that we have a longer time to use, or time for this unit, and just to make sure that you use that wisely and don't wait until the last minute when you're trying to piece together an essay the night before and all that kind of stuff. So we do now get into a unit where the point value, or an assignment where the point value is a little bit more than what we're used to. So rather than 10 or 30 or 50, we're up to, I believe it's 100, and I'm going to just double check that. I think it's distributed the same across the, yeah. So essays 1 and 2 again being a revision of the first, are worth 100, and then essay 3, the very final one that we do, is 400. The course is out of 1,000, so you can see that things are really ramping up towards that final essay, which is kind of the high stakes opportunity for you to show that you've learned and can now apply the basic concepts that we've covered in class. So this is, I think, the first really big kind of point assignment that we've had so far. So again, let's back up, right? Think about this essay. Obviously, you're developing the content, but fundamentally, it's your opportunity to show me that you have learned up to this point and can now apply the stuff that we've covered. So secondary source stuff, basic things about integrating quotations into your writing, the whole shape of an essay or shape of a paragraph idea, getting works cited and MLA citation in the text correct. All of that stuff has been covered in earlier units. So now that's stuff that you sort of have to roll together into this essay, which is again why we have longer to do it, because it is more involved. It does take longer. And you certainly want to think about writing process here, so you're not just sitting down to write your essay. Maybe there's brainstorming, an outlining phase, writing, revision, which really means re-seeing, not just little editing things. Of course, the editing portion of it, that'll come a little bit later towards the end. And having an eye on having it done, certainly, obviously, by the due date, but maybe even a day before, just to give yourself a little leeway. And if you can manage it, one of the best sort of revision or editing strategies is to complete the draft, right? Have everything in place and then not look at it for a while. So sort of take a break from it as best you can. And then come back with fresher eyes. It helps you see sometimes just little mistakes that you've made, but also real problematic things like major repetition or sort of illogical sequencing of things. It's hard to see those when you're really plugged into it. And you haven't had the opportunity to get away from it, let your brain reset a little bit, and then come back to read your essay with a fresher perspective. So the essay itself is pretty standard as far as things go. I have some prompts here. Basically, you're looking to cover just one of the prompts, not all of them, clearly. and they're fairly mostly thematic in approach. So exploring the role of stereotypes or expectations in a work we've read, and again, picking one or the other of those terms. You could discuss how setting is used. So think of Alice Munro's Boys and Girls, for example, as a good example of how setting is used to kind of communicate themes of like where the gendered spaces, put it that way, like where the women are expected to work, where the men are expected to work, and the girl or the narrator in the story sort of being torn between those two settings, generally speaking, in the story. And then, of course, number 3 is examine the theme of change, or you might want to call it initiation, in a work that we've read so far. So again, make sure you're picking just one of the terms from one of the prompts, focusing on just one of the stories. And there's a little note here that I'll highlight. Because the next unit is going to be a revision of this that asks you to integrate a secondary source, I strongly caution against using flight patterns. Not because it's not a good story or it doesn't really fit with any of these themes, but it is hard to find secondary material through the databases specifically on Alexi's flight patterns. So I really caution against writing about that one. Try to choose one of the other ones that we've read, like Araby or Boys and Girls, or just anything but flight patterns. Okay, so you're not using a secondary source. There should be no, like SparkNote or WebNote or web-based search stuff showing up in your essay. Really just kind of write it based on your own analysis, your own interpretation. There's lots of MLA reminders here as far as getting the work cited correct. In-text citation is here again. There's not much more that I can say beyond making sure that you're attending to everything that's in the course, not just the little assignment pieces and sort of hoping you get them right. And the scope of the essay is really not extensive. It's 3 to 4 pages. It's not a big essay, and that's why it's big points. There's just a lot of that conceptual stuff that we've learned. And, I say conceptual, but some of it is very cut and dry, like MLA citation. It's really just right or wrong. There's no sort of philosophy of MLA or any magic or mystery to it. It's just there. All right, so use your time wisely. Be sure you read through all the requirements, read through the examples here, refer back to earlier units if you want to, check on examples and ideas and concepts we've covered there. And then again, make sure you do this first part of it. Don't just skim past to the work part. Looking at the sample essays that are included in our course here, just the sample essays link. And they give you a nice sense of kind of the tone, the style. There's annotations or audio annotations, so there's actually me speaking at various parts, drawing your attention to certain kinds of things. So I'll tell you in advance that I don't provide a lot of commentary or feedback on the document that you'll submit as your essay number 1 or as Unit 7 assignment, but you'll have a grade, and the grade will reflect not just my subjective opinion or this mysterious kind of formula I've got. It really is the work cited correct? Is citation correct? Is there a clear intro, body paragraphs, conclusion? Is there a thesis? Are there topic sentences? Are those in the right spot? So really just a rehearsal of the things that we've covered in the course. There's nothing, again, hidden that I'm hoping people do without me telling them. That doesn't make sense for you, obviously, and for me either. So it also doesn't make sense for me to provide a bunch of commentary on each and every document that people submit, because ultimately you can sort of look at your grade, and if you did well, great. If you did poorly, then you need to figure out, well, where did I go wrong? Is it works cited problems? Did I honestly just not really engage in the class material and sort of hope that the essay would go well? So it's sort of a moment of truth if you want to think of it that way. Anyway, we have a little bit more time for Unit 7. Be sure you use that wisely, or you'll turn into this little Lego figure. You'll see what happens to him. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, be in touch with me sooner rather than later.